It's just like this, man. I got a good heart, but you call me, I gotta get you, man. I got you here for a reason. I could've took your life this night.
Because I fucked up a lot of people that did a lot of things, man. You know why
I gotta get you for you get me type shit, man. This shit for real, you know what I'm saying? I've been shot before, I've been shot in the head, but that was years ago. But this shit woke me up. This shit for real. He just turned around and shot.
This is Jaron Big Moda Rutherford, a 38-year-old Memphis rapper and gang enforcer who would be found riddled with more than a dozen bullets on October 26, 2023. But this wasn't random violence. This was an execution 13 years in the making, stemming from one devastating choice Big Moda made in 2010. But before we get to how Big Moda's life ended in that Oak Haven neighborhood, we need to travel back to where it all began, to understand the man, the culture, and the code he shattered.
Terrell Leverson, the defendant, was convicted by a jury of second-degree murder, misdemeanor assault, and obstructing arrest. After a sentence hearing, the trial court sentenced the defendant to an effective sentence of 25 years in the Tennessee Department of Correction.
Born September 22, 1988, in South Memphis, Jaron Rutherford didn't choose the streets. The streets chose him from birth. Big Moda's childhood shaped him in one of two ways: break completely or become harder than the circumstances. He chose the latter, immersing himself in the Vice Lord's gang structure and eventually becoming a prominent member of Young Mob Military, known as YMM, a hybrid gang that operated out of Walker Homes in South Memphis, representing a fusion of Vice Lords, gangster disciples, Crips, and Bloods. But Big Moda wasn't just another gang member. He became what the streets call a hard hitter, or enforcer, the person you called when words failed and violence became necessary.
I can't even let you threaten me because I'm going to tell you that you're going to take my life for real, so I got to get you for you get me type shit, man.
He resolved disputes through violence, handled conflicts his brothers couldn't, and built his reputation until his name alone carried weight from South Memphis to Oak Haven. Parallel to his street activities, Big Moda was simultaneously building something else, a legitimate music career that reflected the raw, unfiltered reality of everything he was living. He released mixtapes, including the provocatively titled Moda This, Moda That, and collaborated with established Memphis artists like Snooty Wild, Kevin Gates, and Trey Dizzle, building his presence in the local hip-hop community one bass-rattling track at a time. One song in particular, What Up Charlie, became an anthem specifically for Vice Lord affiliates throughout Memphis, solidifying his status as someone who wasn't just rapping about the streets, but was actually embedded deep within them. And Big Moda's reputation for being willing to back up everything he said didn't just come from his music or his role as an enforcer. It came from high-profile incidents that spread his name far beyond Memphis's city limits.
This shit for real, you know what I'm saying? I've been shot before, I've been shot in the head, but that was years ago. But then I was just getting shot and shit, like 12 times. This shit woke me up. This shit for real, I don't take nothing.
Between 2015 and 2016, he found himself at the center of one of the most talked about confrontations in Memphis hip-hop when he was accused of snatching rapper Shy Glizzy's chain during a heated altercation at a local nightclub, an incident that allegedly started over Glizzy's refusal to do a feature with one of Big Moda's associates. The chain was eventually returned, but the damage was done. The disrespect had been broadcast to the streets, and Big Moda made sure nobody forgot it by releasing a diss track titled Suspect that taunted Glizzy mercilessly.
Fuck Glizzy gang! Fuck you suspect! You suspect!
Shy Glizzy would eventually respond with his own track called Cut It.
Do you know how it feels? Oh, you see me on the...
His social media presence only added fuel to the fire, with posts taunting rivals, post provocations. Everything Big Moda had built all rested on a foundation that in street culture is considered more sacred than blood, more binding than any legal contract, more important than life itself. The Code of Silence. Which brings us to February 27th, 2010, the date that would transform Big Moda from respected enforcer into marked man. It started as a seemingly routine trip to Southland Mall in Memphis, with Big Moda and his close associate Terrell Lon, also known as Terrell Loverson, arriving together in Big Moda's vehicle for what should have been an unremarkable shopping excursion. They separated briefly inside the mall, with Big Moda heading to check out shoes while Lon handled his own business. When Big Moda reconnected with Lon, the scene before him was chaos.
They running, so they about time they got the mall, security grab them. So T-Bo said, hey bro, come help me.
Security guards had Lon restrained, pinned against a wall in a confrontation that was escalating rapidly toward violence. Big Moda intervened verbally, trying to talk the situation down.
He said, get your bitch ass out my nigga.
But what happened next occurred so quickly that multiple witnesses would later struggle to piece together the exact sequence of events. Lon produced a black automatic weapon and shot the security guard in what witnesses described as a reflexive reaction to being physically restrained by mall security.
He let him go. He just turned around and shot.
Shots echoed through the shopping center, sending panicked shoppers running in every direction as Big Moda and Lon fled the scene together, racing back to Big Moda's vehicle with security footage capturing their rapid exit from multiple angles. Big Moda would later claim he had no idea Lon was armed, that the entire shooting unfolded so rapidly he couldn't have stopped it even if he'd tried, that his involvement was limited to being present and then providing transportation after the fact, when he dropped Lon off near Ballantyre. And here's where the story takes its most controversial turn. Rather than maintaining the code of silence, rather than taking whatever consequences came his way without implicating his friend, Big Moda made a decision. He cooperated with law enforcement, not passively, but actively. He provided a detailed statement to police, identified Terrell Lon in a photo lineup, and testified against him in court, confirming security footage and giving testimony prosecutors used to secure Lon's life sentence.
Jaron Rutherford testified identifying the defendant at trial as his friend. On February 27, 2010, Rutherford and the defendant went to the mall to go shopping. They went in Rutherford's car. After entering the mall, went their separate ways. Rutherford went to a shoe store and bought some shoes for his daughter. If you don't know who Rutherford is, that's Big Moda.
Now, to be clear, Big Moda's defenders argue he simply told the truth about what he witnessed, that he was being honest about events he didn't cause.
Let's just say, for sake of argument, that you and your homie got in trouble and all that stuff. You might have said something you didn't mean to say. And your homie ends up taking a rap for something. And what you said is actually not what you meant. This is not...
Some say he faced an impossible choice: lie to the police and face charges himself, or tell the truth and face street consequences. There's an argument that he wasn't obligated to protect someone who shot a guard without warning. But street culture doesn't accept excuses. And in Big Moda's case, this wasn't some distant acquaintance or casual associate he testified against. This was Terrell Lon, someone sources describe as his best friend, someone he'd broken bread with, someone who'd trusted him with his life and his freedom. The snitching allegations followed Big Moda everywhere he went, undermining the very reputation he'd spent years building as an enforcer and loyal gang member. Former allies began viewing him with suspicion, questioning whether someone who'd cooperate once might do it again if things ever got difficult again. His standing within the vice lords and young mob military became complicated, creating fractures in loyalties that had previously seemed unbreakable. People who'd once called him brother started keeping their distance, not wanting to be associated with someone carrying that label, not wanting to be the next person he might potentially testify against if things ever got difficult again. Yet Big Moda continued moving through Memphis's streets as if the rules didn't apply to him, as if his reputation as an enforcer and his growing music career could somehow override the fundamental violation he'd committed. He kept making music, kept handling business for YMM, kept posting on social media like he was untouchable, acting as though confidence alone could shield him from consequences that were likely already being planned in the shadows. The years passed and marched steadily toward 2023, and perhaps Big Moda began to believe he'd gotten away with it. But Big Moda's problems extended far beyond the 2010 snitching allegations, because he'd been accumulating enemies at a rate that would have been concerning for even someone who hadn't violated street code. His role as an enforcer meant that he'd been personally involved in numerous violent confrontations, making enemies not just for himself, but also inheriting the beefs of everyone in his circle who needed problems handled. His affiliation with young mob military put him directly in the crosshairs of rival gangs like KSBG, Knocking Stuff Back Gang, in a beef that had been escalating steadily and violently throughout 2022 and 2023, with bodies dropping on both sides in a cycle of retaliation that seemed to have no endpoint. The tension between YMM and KSBG had reached critical levels after YMM members allegedly killed a KSBG member known as Cheese Dollar in 2022. Then, on the morning of October 26, 2023, the same day Big Moda would ultimately die, another KSBG member known as Big Grape or Big Gray was killed in a shooting in Whitehaven, a murder that many believe YMM members were involved in or at minimum would be blamed for regardless of actual involvement.
In the Oak Haven community, a dark-colored car riddled in more than a dozen bullet holes on Chulahoma near Rains. It's another reminder of one of the latest shootings in the city that this time has apparently left a Memphis rapper known as Big Moda fighting for his life.
October 26, 2023 started like countless other Memphis evenings. Big Moda, now 38, was riding passenger in a black Nissan Maxima driven by fellow YMM member Travolta, TJ Jones Jr. They were traveling along Chillaloma Road near East Rains Road in Oak Haven around 9 p.m. Another vehicle pulled alongside them, and the windows erupted with muzzle flashes as more than a dozen rounds were fired in rapid succession.
The Nissan's windows shattered, bullets ripped through the doors, and the car slammed into a tree with enough force to crumple the front end. When the shooting stopped, the scene was brutal. The vehicle was riddled with holes, glass everywhere, and blood splattered across the interior. TJ Jones Jr. was pronounced dead at the scene from multiple gunshot wounds. His life ended because he was in the wrong car at the wrong time. Big Moda was barely alive, visible in circulated footage, gasping for air, his body riddled with wounds. He was rushed to Regional 1 Hospital in critical condition, but some injuries are too catastrophic for even the best trauma care. Shortly after midnight, Big Moda succumbed to his injuries. Initial police reports noted the extensive damage to the vehicle but provided no immediate information about motives or suspects, but the streets had no such reservations about speculating. Within hours of the shooting, multiple theories were already circulating about who did it and why. The most prominent theory pointed directly back to that February 2010 testimony, suggesting that 13 years of resentment over the snitching allegations had finally manifested in street justice, that either people loyal to Terrell Lawn or individuals who simply couldn't tolerate having a known cooperator moving freely through their neighborhoods had decided enough time had passed and the debt needed collecting. Other theories focused on the more immediate beef between Young Mob Military and KSBG, pointing out that Big Moda was killed just hours after Big Grape's death earlier that same day, suggesting this was rapid retaliation rather than something that had been planned for years. A third perspective suggests the reality might be more complex than any single explanation, that Big Moda's death resulted from the intersection of multiple factors. The old snitching allegations that had never been forgotten, the recent gang beef that was actively escalating, his role as an enforcer that had created personal enemies beyond organizational conflicts, and perhaps even elements we don't know about because street beefs often involve debts and disrespects that never become public knowledge. His provocative social media presence, particularly those posts claiming nobody would ever kill him, might have served as gasoline on fires that were already burning, turning him into a symbol that needed to be knocked down to prove that confidence without backing is just noise. What we do know definitively is that the Memphis Police Department has not made any arrests in connection with the double homicide, has not publicly identified suspects, and has not provided updates suggesting the case is close to being solved. The case remains officially open but functionally cold, another unsolved murder in a city where violence has become so commonplace that unless someone comes forward with information or evidence surfaces accidentally during investigation of other crimes, the people responsible will likely never face justice in any legal sense. Big Moto was laid to rest in mid-November 2023, attended by friends and family members who remembered him as someone who was loyal and kind to those in his circle, despite the tough exterior he showed the world. He left behind children who will now grow up without their father. Kids will have to reconcile the man they knew personally with the complicated legacy and reputation he left behind publicly. These conversations reveal deep divisions in how people view cooperation with law enforcement, whether telling the truth about witnessing a crime makes you a responsible citizen or a rat who violated sacred codes, whether gang loyalty should override legal and moral obligations to society, and whether the streets have the right to enforce their own justice when the legal system fails to align with their values. The broader context of Young Mom Military's activities makes clear that Big Moto existed within a structure far more organized and dangerous than casual observers might assume. In July 2025, 8 YMM members were indicted on federal racketeering, murder, robbery, firearms, and drug conspiracy charges involving more than 400 grams of fentanyl and 500 grams of methamphetamine. Earlier indictments in 2017 saw 29 people charged with federal drug trafficking, 14 of whom were YMM members, while incidents like the 2022 McDonald's drive-thru shooting that killed a rival gang member and the 2023 Tugs Casual Grill robbery, where a perpetrator was shot, revealed the level of brazen violence YMM members were willing to commit in public spaces. The streets don't forgive, don't forget, and don't care about your reasons or justifications or the nuances that complicate simple narratives. They only care about the code and what happens when someone breaks it. What do you think about Big Moto's fate? Do you also think it was long overdue? Let me know in the comments section. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.